The biggest part in renovating a kitchen will be your kitchen cabinets. Stay right here today where I'm going to be joined by Daniel Ott of Artisan Contracting, who's here and he's going to talk about everything we need to know about kitchen cabinets. Welcome back to Real Estate 101. Today we're going to talk a little bit about cabinets, and I'm pleased to be joined by Daniel Ott of Artisan Contracting. Daniel, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, Dan, so for someone that's considering renovating their kitchen and upgrading their cabinets, with so many choices out there in the marketplace, how do they know what to go with?
Well, Joe, this is the information age, and most people research everything about everything, and they have all the details about a lot of things before they purchase anything. And yes, there is a lot of information out there, and not all of it jives with each other. So it is important to try to get some of the information from some professionals face to face. Gone are the days when you could just hire a cabinet maker and he would come to your house and build the cabinets on site and in place.
Okay, so is it necessarily a bad thing that some people buy pre-manufactured cabinets?
Not at all. When all the cabinets from one company are manufactured in the same facility, you have a lot more quality control. The difference you might get, however, still is the quality of the installers. So a good professional installer is going to make sure that all the cabinets are square and straight and that all the doors close and that nothing's crooked.
Okay, and has there been a loss in quality of the old, old-fashioned built cabinets to what we're seeing today?
There has, and then also there hasn't. So the materials and the construction methods of the old school way are very rare to find today, and they are much better. But the quality of today's finishes is much, much better than it used to be. So if you think about it, when a cabinet was built in place, the only finish you could apply afterwards would be a brush finish, whether it was painted or stained. Now, when everything's built in one place, we can spray finish it in a paint booth, still either painted or stained, but it's going to be much smoother and a much higher quality.
All right, so let's talk about some of those construction methods. What is the difference from then and now?
So there's been a lot of different cabinets from a lot of different manufacturers over a great many of years, but they all break down into two main categories. And those are face frame cabinets and alternatively frameless cabinets. So face frame cabinets is the old school way of doing things, and it's very rare to find it today, but it is still out there. So essentially what you get is you have your cabinet box and you put a frame on the front face of it. What this essentially does is creates an I-beam out of all of the sides, greatly increasing the strength and the durability. So a frameless skips that step, that process. So you save on both of the material costs as well as the labor costs. And this is the primary reason why frameless is chosen over face frame in 80% plus of today's cabinets.
And are there any differences between frameless and face frame, or is there any other reasons why you should go with one or the other?
Another argument as to why people pick frameless today as opposed to face frame is they think it's a much more contemporary look. And the reason for this is because when closed, your frameless cabinets, the doors are almost touching each other. So you get a much cleaner look. The whole front of the face of all the cabinets is now pretty much flush. Typically, with a face frame cabinet, the doors are separated a little bit and the frame is behind it, so it's a little back. And with those different depths and relief, it looks more traditional. However, it is kind of a misconception that you can't make it look the same. So when you get this door overlapping the frame a little bit and you still see the frame, we have what's called a partial overlay. But you can also install it in such a way that it's a full overlay. And what you'll get in the end is that with a full overlay, your doors will be very close together again, and you're going to look very much like a frameless cabinet, but you still have the comfort of mind of knowing that it's a better built cabinet. Alternatively, a third way of doing that overlay is no overlay at all, and it's full inset, it's called. So the door is actually flush with the frame. You can still tell it's a framed cabinet, but you still have a flush surface. Now this is a very tricky build and install, and so there are only a select few out there who are willing to attempt it. And the reason being that if the cabinet or the door is even a little bit off square, you're going to notice it, or the door might not even close.
All right, so what kinds of materials are used for cabinet boxes?
Cabinet boxes can be made out of either plywood or particle board is a typical way of doing it, or MDF. So plywood is still the most expensive, but it's mostly because of the waste factor involved. So to upgrade your entire kitchen from your standard particle board to a plywood should only increase the cost of your cabinetry by about 5%. So if it is more than that, make sure the manufacturer is explaining why it is more. Now plywood may be stronger, but the finish on the plywood is a little of less quality than that on what's typically put on particle board. Particle board typically has a melamine on top of it, which most people refer to that whole product now as a melamine product. The finish on your plywood is going to wear away as you drag your glasses and your plates across it, whereas the finish on the melamine is going to last much longer, and the melamine box is going to last as long as you need it to.
All right, so what about the construction methods and materials that are used for doors?
So doors can be built in two different ways. One would be a slab door, which is either a piece of plywood or several pieces of solid wood that have been fastened together. Both of these are going to warp a little bit more than the standard door, but they do look more contemporary, and that's the reason why a lot of people choose them. So a standard door, though, is going to be a slab of, could be anything, and surrounded by a rail and style frame, which is typically out of solid wood.
And does the type of joints used make a difference in the strength of the cabinets and materials?
Absolutely. So your standard joint, which is the cheapest, which is also the weakest, is going to be a butt joint. And let's use a 90-degree corner for all of our examples here. A butt joint is two slabs of material that are butted together and they're fastened. Let's hope they use glue because it's a very weak joint. We'll talk about three other types of joints, and they are doweled, dadoed, and dovetailed. All three of these are stronger than a butt joint and more than adequate for their places, and some of them are better situated for other instances than the other joints are. So first of all, we have doweled, and that's essentially still going to be a butt joint, but each material is going to have holes in it where we can stick usually a small wooden dowel together, which is going to increase the strength of that joint. This is typically the type of joint you're going to find in your do-it-yourself cabinets in your big box stores, mostly because it's the easiest joint that a do-it-yourselfer can figure out. After that, we're going to have dadoed joints, and that's essentially where one slab has a channel cut out of it all the way along, and the other slab fits into it. This is a great way to build your cabinet boxes as well as your drawer bottoms. The third type of joint, which is dovetailed, is where each slab has V-notches cut out of the edges of it, and they fit together like fingers. And this is a great way to build, say, your solid drawer boxes. Now, a favorite trick, or a good trick, or a bad trick, depending on which side of the ball you're on, of a manufacturer is, and usually with a custom manufacturer, is you've paid to upgrade to plywood boxes, and now they only use a butt joint. Well, the extra strength that you've gained in the plywood is now lost in the weak joint.
And what about things like hardware, hinges, and your drawer sliders?
Hardware does play an important role. The most expensive, but also then the best hardware comes from Europe. And after that, you have a whole lot of Chinese knockoffs, and viewers should be very wary of the quality of those. We at Artisan like to use Bloom hardware, and that's from Austria. And we'll talk about drawer slides for a second. A pair of drawer slides, one drawer can hold 90 pounds with Bloom hardware, and as well those drawers will come all the way out of the cabinet so you can access the full drawer rather than having that 3 to 4 inches that's still inside the cabinet with some of the knockoff hardware. Another nice feature that a lot of people ask for so much that it's become pretty much a standard now is your soft close feature. And these soft close drawers and doors can be applied to almost every door in your kitchen. So make sure you're aware of which doors will not be able to accept that before you have it built, and all of a sudden realize at the end that there's 2 or 3 special doors that couldn't have that on there.
All right, so on a final note, what can you tell us about finishes?
Finishes and materials are very closely tied together. So much so that if you specify a painted finish versus a stained finish, they're going to pick different types of materials unless you specify exactly what you want your cabinets to be built out of. So with a painted finish, the sky's the limit as to the type of material that can be used, because once it's painted, it's all going to look the same. However, with a stained finish, all the visible components of the cabinets, once all your doors are closed, have to be either solid wood or a wood veneered material. And then those stains are going to look different depending on what species of wood you use as well. And this ties in a lot of what we were talking about hardwood last time.
Right.
And a lot of the species that you use for hardwood can also be used for your cabinetry. So if you're doing a full reno, make sure that these things are complementary. So a favorite over the last few years has been maple. Oak is a classic and is slowly coming back. And then you get into more of your exotic woods. You got cherry, you have bamboo cabinets, tiger wood cabinets. There's a bunch of different things like that. And then a third variation on the type of finish that you can have is an application that's put on top of either paint or stain, and that's a glaze. And that's generally a darker color than whatever the undercoat was. So for example, we're going to take a white door, painted door for an example, and if you apply a glaze on top of that, a dark brown, and you rub most of it off, but you leave it heavy in the corners and things, you're going to come up with a distressed look. So now you have more of an antique, a traditional look. You can take that same door and you can apply a glaze over it and apply it evenly, and depending on the type of glaze you use, you can come up with a variety of unique color creations to get more of a contemporary look.
All right, Dan, good stuff. Thanks for coming on today's show.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
If anybody has any more questions or needs a fantastic kitchen renovation, they can get in contact with Daniel Ott of Artisan Contracting. I'm your host, Joe Terceira. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.